Hello, Hui Hua.
Hi.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Charmaine Teo, and this is Ko Hui Hua. We are joining you this evening to introduce our book called Bilingual Project Learning. But before that, we thought we would do a quick introduction of why we're even here. So I'm actually volunteering as the Vice President of ACES, which is the Association for Early Childhood Educators in Singapore. And Hui Hua, you want to do a quick intro of yourself?
Well, I'm also a volunteer as one of the executive committee members for ACES as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and Dr. Christine Chen is actually our mentor. So in our journey as early childhood educators, we really have to recognize and acknowledge her as a really wonderful mentor for us as we have dived into this profession and as we've also grown. Correct, Eva?
Yes, and actually I started my career with ACES. When I graduated from social work in NUS, I started working in ACES on community development projects. Yeah.
Yeah. So just so you know, for all the viewers, currently you're on Facebook Live, which means you're seeing us, but we can't actually see you. So we have no idea how many people are watching and all of that. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to just write them in the comments, and then those questions will be fed back to us on our Zoom chat. So I did a quick intro of who we are. I just also wanted to say that, you know, ACES has coming a really long way in terms of engaging in online learning, just because of the very unprecedented times that we're in this COVID age. ACES has actually launched quite a few online conversations. I think it evolved from the communities of practice, which saw about 8 to 25 participants. And now it's gone on to conversations. And I think we're looking at about 226 participants. So that's quite a lot for our community. And right now, ACES has actually launched a book series, which is why you're seeing us here. So we are actually introducing the book that we have written called Bilingual Project Learning. And I think the book that's being introduced after us is written by Tan Bing Luan and also Gayatri Mishra. So that their book is called Learning with Children. So just to share with you what the...
Would you want me to flash the photo or no?
Sure. Which photo?
The book.
Sure. Do you have it?
Yeah.
You have Bing Luan's...
this one, right?
Yeah. Okay, great. So that's the next book that's coming up.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You can't see it?
Okay, so we're back.
Okay.
Just to jump along, I think just to give some context as to the kind of themes that ACES has been presenting, they really are related to changing times. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback about dealing with topics like going back to school as an educator, going back to school as a parent, and dealing with the new norm. And I think a lot of educators have also expressed interest in the themes of teaching and learning, right, in this COVID age, and also how to support children. So those are all the key terms that have come up in the past few months. Yeah, so that's us, and that's a bit of context. Maybe would it be helpful if we also share a bit about where we are in terms of how we feel, what changes that have been happening in this COVID time. Maybe we can talk about, I mean, just off the top of your head, are there any kind of practices that have come up for you as a parent and as an educator?
For me as a parent is really hearing about my son's experience in school, you know. I mean, when it first started, it was him saying that he finds it really hard to be in school because he has to be masked the entire time, you know. So but after a long time of not going to school, he really missed spending time with his friends as well. So that his strong friendships really motivated him to want to go back to school despite the discomfort, you know. But then they also have to be very, very, I guess their play is a lot more restrictive, except for when they are in the outdoor area. So I also appreciate that the teachers have put in a lot of hard work, because they've really thought through the whole process of how to really facilitate the children's learning, you know, in the most comfortable way possible, but still keeping it safe. So he would tell me, like, I have to play with this toy, but I have to put it back in my cubby because my teacher will have to sanitize it, right?
Yeah, so I mean, just thinking about it in this frame of context, I guess we're really trying to adjust, right, to a new normal. I mean, that has become such a familiar like catchphrase, but what does adjusting mean, right? I mean, as a parent, adjusting to this also means that we're now constantly wearing masks, right? So for me, wearing masks is, while I recognize that it is very necessary, and I know that it's a first instance sort of thing, you do need to wear a mask, but I also really wonder what the long-term effects are for children in terms of, you know, forming identity, trying and actually deciphering meaning when you don't have the facial expressions to kind of distinguish between different emotions, you know. So that's really at the back of my head as a parent and also as an educator. And as a parent, I actually am very concerned. You know, I try and like be more expressive with my eyes, for example. But there's only so much you can convey with your eyes, right? When you don't have your mouth and your nose and all of actually literally a lot of your face. So, you know, that has been increasingly a concern for me in terms of wearing masks. And for the viewers, interest, I have a 7-year-old child who's in primary 1, and I have a 2-year-old who's just started playgroup in preschool. So both of them are transitioning. One is transitioning from home to school. The other one is transitioning from preschool to big girl school, right? And it's just a bit unfortunate that this has happened in their big transition years. Yeah, so the mask wearing is something that, I mean, I think, you know, has a big impact for me. And then I think the other thing also is, you know, I think prior to this already in Singapore, we are quite concerned about, I mean, we're quite aware of like things like you can't share food, you don't want to share things, utensils, obviously, because we are well aware of tropical diseases like HFMD and everything that's highly transmissible, right? So, but I think now that COVID has happened, you know, we are so aware of not having any physical contact. So again, that's another thing for me, which, you know, when you see little children and they immediately want to reach out, you know, touch is really like their first sense, right? Even before their eyes, the sight and the smell and whatnot. So that for me is another big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm just listening to you talk. The big change for me as both a parent and also because both of us are advisors to our school, right? Like just not being able to step into the space and have those small little conversations with the teachers, you know, like that I feel is what I'm really noticing as the change as well and missing, because then it means a lot more of the communication just on email and on screen. So then again, that's
Yeah.
that's also the other thing, like just being on screen a lot more and constantly trying to remind myself to get off screen sometime, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what our children see us do all the time too, apart from just like having those time with them. We're constantly on our computers, on our phone, for work, for interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe just to set a bit of context before we dive into the book. I mean, from what we've said so far, what we've shared, it really the theme of COVID for us is I don't know if you agree with me, but it's really about a lot of barriers have been set up, not just in terms of the masks and in terms of not touching, but also as you said, right, we are having less conversations face to face and we physically cannot enter the school as well. So all these different barriers that are, not just physical barriers and contextual barriers, but also very symbolic barriers have been put up, obviously for obvious reasons, because we're really trying to control the spread of COVID, right? So I mean, as reasonable or as sensible as these barriers are, they do have an impact, especially as we try to create connections as educators. Would you agree?
Yeah, you're asking me or the viewers? Yeah, I agree.
You, because I can't hear the viewers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving along.
Moving along.
Yeah, so I think it's good should we dive into our book because we have an hour. I thought we could, I mean, we talked about this. We'll spend about 15 minutes introducing the book and then another 15 minutes to go through a project.
Yeah.
And then maybe if we can spend some time talking about how COVID has affected project learning.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just let me put on the slide.
Maybe you can launch the slides. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, let's do it. So we're starting now. So this is the first session of 3. Today we'll be introducing bilingual project learning and one project. And if you have a look at ACES's Facebook page, you'll see a description of sessions 2 and 3. So this evening is really an introduction of the work that we've been doing at Between Two Trees Preschool for the past 12 years. Hui Hua and I have stepped back from management. So what we do now is we do still advise on curriculum, and we are a source of support for the new managing teachers who have kind of grown up with us and who have grown their careers with us. So and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in, any comments, yeah? So as a really quick introduction, because we've done this before, we're Charmaine Teo and Ko Hui Hua. We are from and we love Singapore dearly. We founded Between Two Trees Preschool. Hui Hua is a trained art therapist, and I'm a trained lawyer. And we found our second career, so-called as early educators. And ACES and Dr. Christine Chen has played a very big role in that. So, we give back as much as we can. Yeah. Today we're going to be layering in the context of Singapore. Sometimes when we present the book, especially if we do travel, we like to actually give a brief description of Singapore and where we are from. In all our work, we feel that is extremely important. Also because I'm very interested in post-colonial theory, and of course Hui Hua is also very interested in contextualizing personal experiences. So from those two perspectives, we think context is very important and is crucial in our conversations. I'm sure everyone is aware that project learning is very popular. And also, if any educator also knows of Reggio Emilia. Reggio Emilia schools have deeply inspired our work. In fact, when we started Between Two Trees, we were very much guided by the principles of Reggio Emilia and how the schools are practiced. How we've added value to this, to our experience, really is not just contextualization, but also considering what bilingual project learning can be about. So again, that's I guess is the byproduct of contextualizing, because Singapore is, I mean, you are brought up to be effectively bilingual. It just depends on how bad you are in your second language, or how good for different people. Yeah. So that's, and I think what we'll try and do also is we'll try and talk about rhythm of the day. So we really want to share what the daily experiences are for the children as part of the practice. Yeah, and then we will have time for a project example, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just to contextualize, I mean, I think most of everyone on Facebook Live today is from Singapore, but you are familiar that, you know, we're right at the southern tip of Malaysia. Our weather is tropical, hot and humid. We've done very well economically, and under the politics part, it says one party led, but I'm sure everyone knows that is slowly changing as given the last election. So that also has an influence on, you know, early childhood practice in Singapore, as everyone knows, and that comes in under the form of regulation, right? So as we know, also all our festivals are multi-ethnic, and if you're an educator, you know that we celebrate many different festivals, and we try and have some representation from all groups. And the languages are from the four main groups, and then you have English as your first language. So all of this actually forms a large part of our practice, you know. And then, of course, food is also very important. I think in terms of, I mean, obviously, because we went English full steam, a lot of our culture has had to be passed down through food. So Hui Hua and I, especially, and our senior teachers, we love talking about food, and we love expressing that in our preschools. Yeah. And then another point of contextualization is also to highlight what the education system is like. As all of you know, it was already very well established. I mean, the education system is rigorous. You know, we're good at testing, as shown by PISA results. But you also know that the alternatives are also increasing every day, so every year. And we're also aware of high stakes testing like PSLE, and also streaming. But you will also know that the government has been doing a lot to try and change the conversation and the narrative. From Hui Hua and my point of view, just starting our preschool between two trees, we really wanted to create an alternative in terms of providing something other than worksheets, you know, something other than structured and thematic curricula. We wanted to really provide a space where organic conversations could emerge. Please jump in at any point, okay? If not, you know, my soliloquy is
quite beautiful. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay, so moving along. Yeah, so the context is, you know, childcare centers. There are childcare centers, there are kindergartens, there are infant centers. One thing that's really come about is we've got a lot of jumbo kindergartens now. MOE is also taking steps to have MOE. I mean, they have many MOE kindergartens, and they're making it very, very attractive. I mean, I think we totally understand where they are coming from, and also, it's always about raising the minimum standard, which is really commendable, because, you know, it's not about the top schools. It's always about how great, how the good work that comes from the schools for all of us, right? So, but I have to point out that one practical consequence is that organic small schools like us have suffered a little bit because we are more expensive to operate. I mean, that's another conversation, but just to highlight that it is quite challenging to do a different school now because of that reason, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to
So
just.
can we, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I mean, I think I've covered this already, but we really we set up our own school because we wanted to have an emergent curriculum. We wanted to look at new future learning skills, learning skills that would fit the future. And so that's why also we came up with bilingual project learning. We were very conscious of Western theory and Western education, and also how our Asian values were not just represented, but also considered as the main point. Yeah, and also when we really tried to do a regio inspired space, it didn't entirely work, the beautiful schools of Regio would not be beautiful in Singapore because of how we carry out our days. We don't we're very we obviously we rush a lot given our way of life here. And then the other part of it also is the weather just does not support nature walks at any time of the day. And also our people, a lot of our families have not had that exposure in aesthetics and beauty education. And so simply put, it also meant that our teachers also were not trained in arts, So for us to have a strong visual arts program, I think that's been a real challenge, right, Hua, for teachers and parents.
Yeah, it took us a long time, right? Because I mean, the very typical and for especially for the teachers, a lot of the teachers that came to us would always say, "But I'm not good in art," and that's really based on their own younger experiences of art experiences in school, right? So there was a lot of new learning for all of us when it came to that. Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, also frankly speaking, the teachers have not been trained in arts education, right? So the use of materials is very limited, right? Is that accurate?
Well, I would say that every teacher who have gone through the diploma will have gotten 30 hours of visual arts training, but it is still pretty limited. I mean, if you go through that, but you look at, for example, like when we first look at the Reggio Emilia sense of aesthetics and beauty and what they can appreciate, like it's not like what they're used to, right? And there's also that pressure for teachers, right? It's also what the schools expect of them to produce, you see, and what parents would also want to see. So if they haven't had that kind of support from a group to say, oh, that's fine, putting just a few marks down on a paper, as long as there's a story behind it, right? It's fine, then it's not what they're used to. Yeah.
And I guess going forward, a way to adapt. I just saw a question about how do we adapt, right? I mean, it's quite meaningful to also think about how we can change that. I mean, the possibilities are endless when you think about aesthetics and beauty, art and culture, not just from a Western perspective, but Chinese art, Chinese visual arts, Chinese performing arts. Same for I guess the ancient civilizations, even India, right?
Yeah.
And even Malay art heritage, Malay craft, those are all quite familiar things that we've talked about previously, right? Imagine if people are trained in that and more than 30 hours is provided and they have more areas to specialize in, right?
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean, if art was, I mean, as Dr. Chen has also put it, if art was in the heart of society. So, I mean, that which is a great way because great entry to what we would like to talk about, which is Asian values. A large part of our practice is also considering, it's good that we've got all this Western framed theory and curriculum, we've got all of that, but we also have our Asian values that are running through us, even if they're not in the books that we read about. And I think we've learned the very, very long and tedious ways how Asian values has come through, right? I mean,
we lived it, right?
we lived it. We
Yeah.
walked through them, and I think that's how we really kept it authentic. Every single challenge, every single difficulty in terms of being and having an authentic immersion curriculum came up and constantly came up, how time is spent, what directs the content and learning and really the role of teachers. And I think when we wrote this book, a few of our we actually recognize a few of our Asian values, right?
Yeah.
You think you could swing to the past slide so that I can see that what you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So but just sorry, just go on first.
Yeah. Yeah, so if I hope everyone can see this, but the our emphasis on family, our values of filial piety, and our valuing learning excellence, that is has a real impact. I'm not talking about just grades, but we do tend to want to do well as Asians, right? And then values like loyalty, respect for elders, and also hard work, and thrift. Those are all things that come through in our preschool practice as well. So I'm saying what I'm trying to share also is that these values come through not just for the educators, the senior educators, the junior educators, but they also come through for our parents and our families and our non-teaching staff, the cleaning auntie, who's constantly telling the children to eat faster and don't waste your food, and then you've also got Chinese educated, our Chinese teachers who may not have grown up in Singapore, so they also have different kinds of Asian values, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a time check, it's 8:30, so.
Wow.
Yeah, you can start introducing bilingual project learning.
Okay, so bilingual project learning, we have okay, no, we've already talked about Asian values, so that actually sets the background for bilingual, right? So actually, our project learning is really focused on English and Chinese because of our preschool. But what we've put across in the book is that it could be English and something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to keep going? So our emphasis on projects are really, we love nature. We want to look at edible gardening, recycling, sustainability, having community experts. So not just having teachers in the classroom, but really learning from the community. And this is a learning cycle. We call it the B2T way. So actually, this is still carried out in between two trees. It's a three-part cycle. We start from provoke, and then we investigate and reflect. And what's key in this learning cycle is also not just keeping to our learning standards, but also having different forms of evaluation. Yes, and of course, visual arts is a big part of the project. So in B2T, we don't just do project learning, we also do subject learning, clearly because the children have to be primary 1 ready. One big thing is that you don't have to do, bilingual project learning can be done with very limited resources. We did it in a preschool in a space for 25 children. So in Singapore terms, that's a tiny school. We did not have enough space. We also did not have a huge budget. So we used a lot of recycled materials. So that's why we also think it's quite valuable for any school to do it, yeah, so our big idea was really when we wrote this book was that any school can do project learning now.
Yeah, and you can do it at home too, right? For I have parents who bought the book because they are interested to find out how they can do it in their own home, you know. And I also just remembering you're saying we have subject learning. When we started off, remember we were so idealistic. It was just project learning, right? And sorry, my son.
Hi, Anne.
Just finished his dinner. Yeah, we started with just project learning, but along the way, really just again contextualizing. We had to include subject learning, and it's actually a really nice balance now for us, right? I mean, the feedback that we get from our parents, I mean, our graduates who have gone off to primary school, they are still very interested in learning, and they are coping with you know, what the structured learning part demands of them, you know. So we are really proud of it.
Yeah, I think the balance, a good balance has been struck, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we accept that there will always be a tension between how much project learning we're doing and how much subject learning we're doing, but we decided that we were working for the children.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We have one question. Why are subjects not integrated into projects?
They are actually. I mean, they are integrated, but it's just that we would still set aside time just for subjects to carry out like the structured part. Like for example, this we really want to teach the concept of
1 to 10.
Yeah, 1 to 10, right? Yeah, just to make sure that all these are covered as well.
Yeah, sorry, but projects do cover, when we plan for projects, we do cover subjects. There is a web for subject learning as well. So we have a couple of webs going on per project.
Yeah, so the teachers actually before when they feel like a project is brewing, they would actually have a brainstorm session of all different kind of webs, you know, like one on really just a subject, one based on the different just really different webs out there. Okay, I'll show you a few.
Yeah. Wait, yeah, you'll see it later. I think the another question, I think from Dr. Chen, from the child's perspective, do they see learning in relation to subjects? Do they see learning in relation to subjects? As I repeat, you may answer.
I guess within project time, they don't really, right? It's quite seamless when they have the
I mean, and also I think what we also try and present to children is, you know, we are not looking for performance in terms of subjects. A lot of times we try and present it as a game, you know, and then we've also as our teachers come go through this whole cycle with us, it's also about social emotional development, you know, about how it feels when something is wrong, when you get something wrong, you know, or you know, you haven't done it right, you know, the right and the wrong. We really try and talk about that as well, right?
You mean when they're doing subject learning?
Yeah, when they're doing subject learning. So because the question is from the child's perspective, do they see learning? So my response to this is that when you present it as a game, there is learning, right? Because they're trying, we try and make it fun, and we try and present it as a choice, right?
Yeah. Does that answer the question?
We have another question. What happens if the child is too deeply engaged into a project that makes it hard to move on? Is there an optimal time frame that a child should stay on a project? So this is a really good question, because we've had to really deal with it, right? I think initially we said that we really let projects go on, but then we also took the group.
And then it really went on and on, right? I mean, we had projects that went on for like 6 months.
Yes. And then we also realized that, I mean, we also took a step in do it as adults because yes, the children are interested, the teachers are still interested, but we also have other children interested in other things, and we also needed to report on the project, right? So there were a few things that were in competition. So currently how it works is there are about 2 projects per term, right? And I think the teachers also play a big part in framing questions and framing the information flow and learning, right?
Yeah, and I think we really also respect the lifespan of the project. I mean, it's not to say, so how it works is one project is, maybe coming to an end and another project is starting, right? And we allow that to happen. We just have like a new provocation that's set up in the classroom, right? And while this project is coming to the end. So in that way, because we give the allowance, the teachers also don't feel pressured to like, okay, I need to like finish it by this week and stop the discussion, because we always say the important thing is really to keep that interest, to really support the curiosity that the child has, right?
Yeah. Okay, this is very exciting because there are many more questions coming along. So there's the next one about how do you define subject? Are you referring to math and language? Oh, is this a conversation or are they asking us? But we define subjects as the subjects that are being learned in primary 1. So something that came up for us early on in our practice was that a lot of our children are going to primary 1. They're not, half of them go to international school, but half of them go to primary 1. And I think what we wanted to do was have an emergent curriculum for children who are going into the local system. So subjects are English, math, and Chinese. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you want to show the rhythm of the day?
How many minutes? Yeah, you're going to show that?
Let's see if it works.
If it doesn't, I think Derek will tell us.
I think it's supposed to be the voiceover for this, Shah.
Oh, okay. Hello. Oh yeah, okay, so this is our setup. You'll see that our setup, I mean, you can see that we're in a very, our little preschool. This is Good Morning. So this is where there's drop off. This is of course pre-COVID. So our parents cannot step past this line now, but you can see, in a typical Asian family, the grandparent is there dropping off 2 brothers. And then they've also got the grandfather, and this is now we're at health check. So we're sharing with you rhythm of the day because it also shows how projects grow in our everyday lives and between children. Yeah, so health check is pretty rigorous. Now you just imagine that our teacher has a face mask and the children
shield,
also have
a shield as well.
A shield, yeah. This is another pair of sisters, and then they have outdoors. So this is outdoor time. A lot of we try and spend at least an hour every day outdoors. And then actually most of the school is outdoors. Well, when can you check the chat? And then this is our very crowded sandpit, but essentially this is one class. Having outdoor play. So all of our outdoor areas are used, and this will be indoor. And it's so different now in COVID, right? Because they don't actually, now sitting like this feels a bit nostalgic, right?
Yeah.
So that's also story time for all of them.
Sure, I can't check the chat. I can't check the chat because I'm doing sharing.
Okay.
Oh, maybe.
Don't worry. This video is not supposed to have sound. Yeah, I am kind of introducing to you the flow of the day. So I'm actually describing, and now we're currently at indoor time. So this is where the children are busy working on what they're doing for the day. It could be related to their projects, or it could be more in relation to subject learning. But you can see that the space is also set up. I mean, it's pretty tight. It's not a huge space. So all the areas are actually planned quite carefully, and also as well as the documentation areas. Another key part, I guess, also is
But I always love
another
that even though it's such a small space, I mean, we look with our adult eyes, it's such a small space, but the children are just so busy and engaged and happy, you know. Look at our two firemen going around the whole space.
I know. So this is the project on fire, right? So every area has been planned for the project. And this is our Chinese teacher who's actually grown with us, right?
Yeah.
Our Taiwanese teacher.
Yeah.
Then we go on. I mean, a huge part of our day is also being in the garden. And the children are very busy with the garden. They're growing vegetables. We like to have conversations with the chef too about the food that that's being provided. And then you know, it's also quite Asian. Our children get their own food. You know, we have a certain discipline also of picking up your own food with the cutlery, and also clearing your utensils when you are done. The children become quite
no, and the lovely part is when they have their greeting before they eat, right?
Yeah,
and they thank the chef, and they thank the auntie for preparing the food, you know, and they invite everyone to eat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
How do you say it? How do you say it?
What?
老师
请吃，小朋友们请吃，大家一起吃。
是啦。
谢谢 Uncle Go 和 Auntie Esther。
谢谢 Uncle Go 和 Auntie Esther，真棒。
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that shows. Thank you, Anne. That shows our half day, right?
Yeah.
So we want to share that because it's so important to share how our projects grow. It really is in that setting, you know, that we are very conscious of. So the projects grow organically, right?
Yeah, very, very. Because, like, for example, one project really grew from them being in the space looking at an eggplant, right? And the boy holding onto the eggplant and asking why is it purple, you know?
Yeah.
So the teachers are always listening out and observing our children, you know, and they are really how our projects start.
Right?
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Anne. I think what we are also trying to show is that, you know, the voices of the children come through in what we do. Not just Anne right now, but with all our media, right? Okay. Can we hop on to, I think we need to keep going in terms of the book.
Yeah. Shall I just go share one project very quickly? I mean, just the main structure, because then the next session we will share more in depth. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, like you said, we always start with a web.
We can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Sorry,
yes.
unpressed the button. Okay, so this is a hand-drawn web in the classroom when they were discussing a shoe shop. Okay, this is our project on shoes. And you see an introduction. We have 10 different projects that we highlighted, we chose and curated for our book. So one of them is shoes, and we really love this project because we just felt it was such a rich experience for the children. And when we first decided on this project, you know, I had the parents coming to me, and a mom coming to me and asking, like, shoes, are you sure? Because, you know, it's such a girl topic, right? Like, how much can you do with shoes? And we will see what we can do with shoes. Okay, so we usually would have a web. This is this actually shows what we are going to talk about in the next few pages. But on the left, you can see these are the different shoes that the children made. Okay, so we shared that there were three different stages. The first stage is provocation. So really, how do we invite children to talk more about a topic? Okay, in this case, the teachers really invited the children to bring shoes from home. So you see the shelf at the back. They have brought shoes from home and they set up a shoe shop, like the web that we saw in front, like what they needed. So they gathered all these things, and there was a lot of dramatic play, role playing. So you can see the children have taken, wearing tags, right? They have taken on the different roles as customer, as cashier, buying shoes. Okay. And constantly we are asking questions. For example, this: how do we display shoes in our shoe store? What are the things we need in our shoe store? Okay. Next stage is investigation. So which is really investigating the shoes. So you see, please, I'm talking. Okay. You can see this boy painting the soles of his shoes because they're checking out the kind of prints that shoes can have. So they all actually really took their own shoes to do it, and you can see a variety of prints that are made. Another example is we usually would go out to see an expert when we're investigating, or invite an expert in. In this case, we had a shoe designer come in to share how they make shoes, you know. So then the children listen and interview them and really ask about the process. Here's them measuring the heels. So within that, you see is math learning, right? Okay, still on investigation, we talk about designing. So we got them to think about the process of designing. What do you need to do first? You know, you do a lot of different types of drawing of shoes. You identify what you like, what you don't like. You know, you try to problem solve. Like if you have like a pair of shoes, but there's something you don't like about it, what you can do. So this is the thought process that we would have we facilitated. Okay, and then we encourage them to think about the different types of brainstorm the different types of materials that they need. So you would see here, like under making shoes, these are the materials that the children would have offered, you know, like they just brainstorm what they possibly think they could use to make shoes. Okay. At reflection stage, when they come close to thinking like what how they are going to capture their learning, we usually try to also plan expedition out. Okay, so this is them, our children going to the within our visiting a shoe a cobbler in our community. So they took a bus from school, you know, and we invite some parents to come with us as volunteers, you know, so that it's safe for the children when we go on the bus and cross roads. And you see them, they are visiting the cobbler. And what happened is there was a lot of prep work. We were actually asked if they have any shoes at home that they would like repaired. So one of them actually brought mommy's heels, you know, to be repaired. And along with that experience, then you see there's really real life transaction, because they had to bring along money, right? So they learned that it is a service and they pay for the service. And on the right side of the screen, you see these are the different drawings that our children have made. So after they watched the cobbler mend the shoes, they actually all sat there with a clipboard and a piece of paper, and they were observing all the different tools he had on his little table, and they drew them out. Okay. This is a letter that we use for all of our projects, and it's based on the Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, and it's really the different levels of learning. So we basically set out the thought process that way for our teachers as well, you know, when it comes to questioning our children, when it comes to learning. So like a simple kind of question you would ask at the entry stage is, what are the different types of shoes you have, right? And then when it goes up to what are the different types of shoes for different occasions, okay? So it slowly goes up the ladder, and at the end, what we really want to inspire is that idea that is that process where children are creating, they're constructing, they're building on their ideas. So, you know, we're asking, how would you display your shoes, and how would you recommend them to your customer? Is really getting their very own individual input on this. Okay. And the last part of the book chapter, we talk about seeds of possibilities. And a lot of these actually came from us sitting together as a team and reflecting on the projects that's been done. So for example, this shoe project, we have sat down and evaluated, what were the really highlights of it, on what else we could have done. So these are some of the ideas that we have, that if we were to do the projects again, what else can we do? Yeah.
Maybe I can also just jump in. Thanks, Hua. That was great. So there was a question that came in about how do we track learning, whether it's from the children's view of learning or the adults breaking down their learning to make it meaningful. And then I think Lucy gave some really good thoughts as well. So I think we agree generally also that we want to show learning, not just, definitely we capture children's voices to show how they think they've learned, but also from a very practical standpoint, how we've grown is that we've also, we try and show parents where the learning has occurred. So, because we're Regio inspired and all that, a key part of being Regio inspired is the documentation. But how we've added value to our process is what kind of documentation do we do? I think Dr. Chen is very correct in saying that we need to rethink how to track learning, right? For us, I think because we have an invaluable resource of having an artist with us, we really like to look at documentation from what the children can draw and what the children can make. So when we do projects, you will see that the drawings from the beginning of the project are completely different from the drawings that are at the end of the project. Not just because of pure repetition of observations, but also because of multiple invitations to look at something from a different perspective. So we spend a lot of time on that. And then another thing that we also do to provide this, to really draw out learning, is for children to present their work not just in 2D, but also in 3D, meaning like that they can draw something which is really well and great, and it gets more detail in the process, but then also jumping on to making it so that it becomes a thing. So we also strongly feel that really pulls out a child's understanding of any given thing, right? So that's how we actually show learning. And on top of that, on top of the documentation of the project, not just as from a single child's perspective, but really as a group, what have they learned? So we also look at conversations. We really like to reflect on the group conversation where they actually co-construct their knowledge.
And I always remember these are some of the times where the teachers will get so excited, like they're like, oh my gosh, do you know what he said about shoes? Right? And they're like, he actually said this and this and this, and it's because to them that demonstrates the learning, and it came from the child, right? They would actually share like what they observe or they have learned.
Yeah. So another question from Catherine is, can this project learning approach be applied to young toddlers 18 months to 3 years old? And the answer for us is definitely yes. We found in our experience, and it's also included in our book, different groups, different age groups tend towards different things. The younger children, the 18 months to 2.5 years old, they really like things that deal with their senses, and also as they are starting to attach words with what they see, so those are the kind of what can you also talk about here? What are some projects for the playgroup children?
Zoo.
Yeah, we really love the zoo. Yes. So yes, definitely it can be. We try and also go a little bit in detail of water, fire.
Yeah.
as they grow up, they really like environments, which is so rich because there's always that home learning perspective. They like to bring in supermarkets, markets.
So you realize we had supermarket in N2 quite a few times, and in for the nursery ones. So the nursery ones are the ones who are turning 3, right? Because it would have been the first time they get to play in the playground. And where our garden is, there are always these airplanes going by. So nursery ones always end up doing like an airplane project because they're so excited about the airplanes that are flying over our garden.
Yeah, so another question that's come up is children learn from each other. So what is the role of the teacher? And that is another great question that's also relevant, you want to jump in a bit on that, Hua?
The role of the teacher is really
multiple.
Yeah, I was trying to say it's so layered, right? Like they do different things. They are observing. Sometimes they really can just play the part of the observer, right? And they are really supporting by showing new things to the children, right? Bringing in new things as well. Yeah, off the top of my head.
Yeah, so just to jump on, the teacher is not, there is so much can be said for direct teaching, right? But I think the answer for me for the role of the teacher is it's not just about direct teaching, it's about someone like a guide, right? Someone who can facilitate co-construction of thought, of learning, someone who can, it's like you're almost like a guide, right? That teacher is, and the teacher is also documenting, the teacher is also framing the experience in terms of what areas there can be. For example, we have multiple variations of a supermarket project where in 1 year, one group wants to do barcodes. In another year, one group wants to make a trolley. In another year, one group actually made a supermarket. So the teacher is crucial. The teacher's role is crucial in terms of articulating the children's interests.
Yeah, for me, it's really that the teacher is supporting that delight in learning. When you have a teacher who is so excited that you're learning something together, and it's not something that is just said like, oh, I am excited, but it's something that the children can feel. Right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of, someone just wrote also that, about celebrating their learning. That's also something for the adults to do, right? It really also creates, we're not just creating meaning, we're not just creating meaningful experiences. The children are experiencing a certain level of joy as they create experiences and things, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so actually we are time checking now. It's 8:57. We have 3 more minutes. I just want to round up and summarize a bit about what we have talked about. I think we've covered a lot, right?
Yeah.
Just to go back again on bilingual project learning, this is really, we've tried to introduce our book tonight. We will be coming back again in the next 2 weeks and to go more in depth, but tonight it was just really an introduction to our book. We also set the context for why we're doing this book series. ACES is doing a wonderful job of going online and creating all this online content for educators who are here tonight. And after we're done with these 3 conversations, these 3 weeks, we will have Bingwan and Gayatri introducing their book titled Learning with Children. So that was the part about ACES. I think on bilingual project learning, we've basically set the context as in our Singaporean experience. We also have set the context about what philosophy, culture, and space does for us. We've shared a bit about each part. And then we have 2 more weeks. So we're going to be covering more projects. We're going to be covering questions, how to ask good questions in a project. So we're really excited and we're really happy that you're here watching us tonight. It's our first time, so thank you. And we also want to do a shout out to our B2T teachers who are also online. Thanks, Esty, for that comment. Yeah, and of course, we've got our dear Hui Jia, who's timekeeping for us in the background as well as a second Derek. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So end of tonight. Hui Hua, you have any last words? You have half a minute.
Oh, cool. I just want to say thank you all for being here. And I hope this is another thing for nourishment, because we can't get out there and see other centers, you know, in person. So hopefully this gives you like a window of looking into our school, I mean, B2T, and what we've been doing, you know. Hopefully that is inspiring, which is why, I mean, we wanted to share our practice through the book as well. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and if you have any more questions, please write it in the comments on the Facebook post maybe, so we can read through, and the next time when we get back, we can address some of these questions, that burning questions that you have too.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening, and thanks for listening to us. See you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Same time, same place. Bye.
Bye.